Some call it God's conference. Some call it the conference of quarterbacks. We call it the ACC. This is the ACC preview show with college football tradition. We got Jacob Vanderford, Lucas Miller, and Brody Mahalio guest appearance on the show today. How's everybody doing as we get into this ACC talk? Brody, welcome in.
Thanks, Bryan. I'm absolutely hyped. Now that the United States is out of the World Cup, I can finally focus on college football. This is my time of year to thrive. I'm absolutely hyped for everything to come, basically. I think Pitt football is going to have a big year for the listeners. I'm a big Pitt fan, so year two of Mason Hines show, and we'll get more into that, I'm sure, as the podcast goes on.
Okay, gotcha. I don't know if we're in the same boat as you on that. Lucas is a Penn State guy right here. Lucas, how you feeling about the ACC going into this year?
We already talked about like Miami is probably the front runner. So outside of that, it's usually a pretty entertaining conference as far as, the middle of the line. There's just teams that are like bunched in there at 6-6 and 7-5. So I'm kind of excited to see how it goes outside of Miami and like, the likes of SMU and a couple of those teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Jacob, you're probably the farthest removed from ACC country in your neck of the woods. Like, what's your outlook on this conference from an outside observer throughout your life?
Dude, I don't really have any affiliation with the ACC. I just kind of watch the games, but being I was down in Texas for a little bit, so I went to a few SMU games. I went to a Baylor game. They're Big 12, but SMU, and just watching UVA, Vatech, uh, Boston College play Nebraska in the bowl game, in the Pinstripe Bowl several years ago. So, just by association, but it's a fun conference to watch for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really fun league to watch, especially last year. We saw one of the most interesting conference championship game matchups as we saw 7-5 Duke take on and win against a really good Virginia team, a double-digit win Virginia team under Tony Elliott. That Duke win in the ACC championship game, that led to a lot of dominoes falling. We saw James Madison make the playoff as the fifth highest ranked conference champion. We also saw the college football playoff in the offseason just a couple months ago change some of their playoff rules. So basically, the ACC champ, the Big 12 champ, Big 10, and SEC champs are automatically going to make it in, and the top G6 team. So it's no longer the top five conference champs. It's just the Power Four conference champions and whoever the highest ranked group of six team is, no matter if they win their league or not. So it's going to be very interesting to see that play out this upcoming year in the league, and just in college football in general. I don't know if it'll have an effect based on some things, and we are hoping and waiting on some ACC tiebreaker rules to come into effect because Miami, they didn't play for an ACC championship last year after going 10-2, snuck into the playoffs as the last at-large bid, but then went on a magical playoff run. We saw what they did at Texas A&M, then against Ohio State in Dallas, and then against Ole Miss late. And then they played Indiana to the wire in that national championship game. They finished the year 13-3 and the national runner-up, and certainly the favorite this year as they get Darian Mensah, the quarterback at Duke. He comes over to Miami, star-studded offense, but really want to start today with not a star-studded offense. So that's Boston College. What's our outlook on the Eagles going into a year like this? It's really year three of Bill O'Brien. It's hard to believe that 9-16 overall. So how are we feeling about the Eagles going into the season?
This is one of the teams I did not look up, but knowing how Boston College is historically, they're going to be awful. I feel like they usually have like a pretty good running back, and that's about it for their team. Uh, when you said Bill O'Brien was their coach, I completely forgot he was their coach, and I find that hysterical. That because I thought Lucas would tell me better than myself, but I thought he had a pretty good reign at Penn State from coming out of that Joe Paterno stuff, going to the NFL, and then coming back to college, and he's been an absolute disaster. Uh, yeah, I can't imagine it going well for BC this year.
The only good team that I feel like Boston College has had was when Tommy Castellanos was the quarterback there, and then he automatically transferred to Florida State, and that was when they played my team, Nebraska, in the Pinstripe Bowl, I believe. And so Yeah, I don't think they. I mean, and they had Dylan Lonergan at quarterback. Just the offense doesn't really have any stars on there. I'll probably get torn apart by the listeners who enjoy Boston College. But just looking at their defense as well, their secondary they were 126th in yards allowed per drop back last year, which is just god awful. The defense has allowed so many yards both in the rush game and the passing game. Drop back pass, uh, play action pass, like all of those, it's going to be tough for Boston College to not give up points. And so we'll see what the offense can do. I'm not really super excited about what the defense can do. And for me, I have Boston College really at the bottom of the league in the ACC.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. I have them pretty low. I mean, I think from what I've looked at, they had a couple of transfers that came in. I believe they have a transfer quarterback that came in along with a running back, which Brody alluded to that, they usually have a pretty strong run game, it seems. But I don't know. A lot of the transfers from what I looked at earlier today that are coming in are kind of, I mean, we don't really use the term mid-major as much. They're more of like FCS guys that have come in. So I mean, I don't really know how the outlook of the offense will be after this spring and after this summer.
Yeah, this is a team that I think it sounds like all four of us are pretty low on. They bring in Mason McKenzie, Saginaw Valley State quarterback. We talked a lot about Saginaw Valley State the last couple of episodes. I feel like D2 quarterback coming up to play ACC football. Last year, this is how much of a sicko I am. I was rewatching the Boston College Syracuse game just literally a week ago, and I was just watching this 1-10 team against this 2-10 team. Boston College, I think, pulled out the win. I'm pretty sure their running back leaves for Indiana. He had a couple 100-yard games, so that's a big loss. They do bring in a 1,300-yard rusher from Liberty, Evan Dickens. Like he's a pretty decent player. So we'll see. Like Lucas said, a lot of mid majors. I think the saving grace for Boston College is the schedule. So we have the schedule pulled up here. You better get your wins early. You travel to Cincinnati, who is a revamped team. Rutgers at home, Maine at home, early season Virginia Tech under James Franklin, who knows what they're going to be early on in his tenure. So you better get your wins there because the back half of the schedule really difficult. At Duke, Florida State, at Notre Dame. Syracuse did a rivalry game at Miami. So it's just a really tough end of season. So I would say if they're not at 5 wins by the Duke game, I don't think they go bowling. Like it's just going to be really, really tough. So that's where I kind of stand on Boston College. Anything else on the Eagles before we move on? Nothing left. Okay, California's next. Cal in the ACC from the Pacific Ocean. This team like ended up finding a groove last season with their quarterback. Like we saw like really some big steps get taken throughout the year for JKS. And I thought that offense was rolling. So what's our outlook kind of on Cal going into this year? They open up with UCLA and Bob Chesney's first game for the Bruins.
I really like Cal. I really like JKS. I don't think Cal is gonna like be a conference champ or in the conference championship game by any means, but I think they can make a bowl game. And looking at their schedule, I think you can beat a Syracuse, you can beat a Wagner. I think they could go to UNLV and beat UNLV at UNLV. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of those games they can win. Like we talked about, JKS. 3,500-yard passer last year. He can also do it on the run as well. So I think that offense can really be creative with how they use him as well. And I mean, I know Josh Lapointe can do new defensive coordinator at Oregon. He brought in some defense from Oregon with him. A lot of transfers from there. Also a lot of transfers from the SEC and from North. I'm seeing and all these kinds of things. So they're really loading up on defense. One of my favorite players from Cal was Zeke. But I think he had like 5 or 6 picks. Almost Nate. So
I think we're
stock
losing you a
up on
little
his
bit. I think we're losing you a little bit, Jacob.
Yeah, I can step in here. So I'm very high on this Cal team this year. They bring in the new head coach Tosh Lapoy is how I think you say it. It replaces I forget who their old coach was, but he was a very defensive-minded coach. From what you heard about Tosh, he's a more offensive approach. He's big in recruiting and stuff. I think he's going to make a big impact at Cal. The one thing with these West Coast teams that join the ACC, obviously, is the travel and stuff like that. I think that's always difficult for them, but I think their schedule is pretty favorable this year. Their two toughest road games are at SMU and at Virginia. After that, pretty winnable games. Their home games. I think they got Clemson at home. They got Pitt at home. Are like their two main conference like big home games this year. I really think this team can go like 8-4, 9-3 this year, make a jump as JKS makes a jump too. I think their season really depends on how he does if he continues to improve because he was a true freshman last year. I think he won ACC Freshman of the Year last year. He's the one quarterback who I think is better than Mason Hines in the sophomore class in the ACC. But I think this Cal team is going to be a lot better than what they were in the past because they're going to be more offensive focused than they were having a defensive minded coach.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree that I'm a little bit high on Cal. Um, I kind of have them sitting between the 7-5 and the 8-4 line. And when I went through the schedules that we have here on the spreadsheet, but I think that the question more for me for Cal coming into the season is how they've revamped the defense. Because I mean, the offense I think is still there, especially when you have JKS. Doesn't really matter. I think what the weapons are. He was electric last year. Um, but I think as long as that defense can at least be improved, it seems that they had brought in a couple transfers on the defensive side of the ball. A couple edge rushers they have from Louisville. They have a couple corners that they brought in from Arizona, Georgia. A couple guys from Oregon that we have mentioned that came along with the defensive coordinator. So I mean, as long as the defense matches the production that they had on the offensive side, I think they could go 8-4. But I predict that they'll go around 7-5. I think that did they go 6-6 last year? Was
I
that
believe so.
Uh,
yeah? So I think at least a slight improvement. I mean, still bowling. But yeah, I think at least a little bit of an improvement since last season.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously dodged Miami and they dodged Duke, but you know, they play good ACC teams. Like this isn't an easy schedule. I think UCLA will be improved this year. I think Clemson will be better this year. It's going to be hard
Hmm.
for a Dabo team, I think, to not be as good. Like UNLV is a good team. Vatek will be better. Wake Forest was sneaky good last year. I believe they had 9 wins last year. SMU is going to be all right. NC State sneaky good as well. Like, so I think that the schedule is pretty difficult. So I could kind of agree with that range of 7-5, 8-4, unless we're seeing JKS Heisman. That's kind of where I think the range is, especially for like a first year coach kind of thing.
I would say like ceiling 8-4, and then floor is that you make a bowl game. Like I don't think they go
So it's a
5-7.
so it's a very short window, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I could kind of get behind that. Yeah. 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 That'll be one of the teams to really watch out for, kind of like dark horse level of chaos that Cal can provide in the league this year. Yeah. Anything else on Cal before we move on to Dabo? Nice. Okay, Dabo Sweeney. He's next up for us. 18th year with Clemson. It's hard to believe that. He has a 186 and 53 overall record. This guy absolutely dominated the league during the 2010s, especially the late half of that decade. And now we see in the 2020s during the playoff, it's been a slow regression, really, since he's lost Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, they made the playoff 2 years ago. High hopes for them last year. They were everybody's preseason, darling to kind of make it a run. And then we saw them really drop off early. I mean, they were out of the playoffs before we hit October, pretty much, outside of, for ACC winning the league standards. But, we go into a year like this, like you have a whole revamped offense, like kind of new coordinators scattered throughout as well. So I think this is a good reset year for Dabo. We'll see what it looks like. Obviously, the big highlighted thing is that game at LSU, Death Valley against Death Valley to start the year. What's our outlook on Clemson, the Tigers, going into year 18 for Dabo?
Yeah, I'm pretty high on Clemson. Maybe I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid like the past couple of years. Uh, what they finished 7-6 last year, which I think was like the worst season since the early 2010. Uh, the interesting thing is going to be how their quarterback Messina is doing for their team this year. I think that's going to be very important for how that team does. I think their offensive line, like most of those guys return, they're going to be very strong offensive, defensive line per usual. It's going to come down to the playmakers. Uh, I think Messina started one game when Klubnik was out last year, and he threw for like 300 yards and a couple touchdown passes against, I believe it was SMU too. Like it was a pretty decent opponent. And he had a very good game. Uh, so if he can have a good season, I think Clemson can go 9-3, 10-2. Stabbo has that pedigree. He's a very good coach. I think his issues in the past were not going to the transfer portal in this year, there's been a big turnaround, like you said, where I think they only returned 8 starters from last season. So it's
Mm.
almost a whole new team from what they had, which I think is a good thing, especially when you were as bad as you were. Uh, but yeah, I'm pretty high on this Clemson team this year. I think 9-3, 10-2 is very achievable for them.
Yeah, I think that well, where I have them sitting at right now, I have them at 9-3. I think that that first game against LSU, I mean, that's going to be tough. I think LSU comes out and wins that one just because I think the debut of Lane Kiffin there, I just think that they get that one. But Clemson after that, I think they'll hit their stride. I mean, as you said, how do you pronounce his name? Vicina?
Vicina, yeah.
Vecina, yeah.
Yeah.
Vicina, yeah.
I mean, he's been there for a couple years, so hopefully he has been able to like learn behind Cade Klubnik as long as he was there. I mean, they still retain Bryant Wesco at receiver, so like if he can still produce, I mean, he's a great playmaker.
Yeah.
The running back position, I guess, would be my question because, as we've seen Clemson, when they play well, they have pretty good running backs to kind of balance out that offense alongside the receivers. They brought in transfer this year from SMU, Chris Johnson Jr., and then they still have Gideon Davidson, which was one of their freshman backs last year. So, I mean, on the offensive side of the ball, if they can play like the way that we're used to seeing Dabo Swinney's offense play, I think after they have that initial matchup with LSU, if they can hit their stride offensively, the defense might be able to then, come around. I mean, they get their first couple games, they play Georgia Southern, North Carolina, and then they're at Cal. I have them winning that game at Cal right now, but then they run into Miami. So I don't know. It's kind of up in the air right now. Could be like 8-4, 9-3.
Yeah, yeah, I kind of have them in that range too because the schedule it's very similar in my opinions to Cal outside of that
Hmm.
non-conference game at LSU. But you guys mentioned it. We talked about the offense. So Chad Morris, he comes back as the coordinator. So he was there from 2011 to 2014, and I think that was the Taj Boyd. Is that Taj Boyd?
Yeah.
Late Taj Boyd, who was the quarterback after him? Was it Watson? I think early Watson too.
Ooh, yeah, Watson
Well,
probably
Watson
was
would
on
have
that
been there
last run.
from, he was there from like 2015 to 17, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Right?
So probably a
Maybe.
Morris recruit. Yeah. Well, either way, that's when I feel like the Dabo offenses really took the next level and really started becoming shifting really to a pass first kind of offensive style during that era. So I'm going to look for them to sling the ball around a little bit more. And then on defense, I think they really are going to be good still. Will Help, he was a guy who last year 17 and a half tackles for loss. And then they bring in London Merritt from Colorado. He was like one of the very, very, very few bright spots on the Buffalo team last year. So London Merritt, a guy I really like, and then Marcus Strong from Oklahoma. So I think the defense can be really strong, and because of that, I think that they could win 9 or 10 games. If they're 10-2, they're a bubble team for the playoff. I don't like to get into that too much because it depends on what happens elsewhere in the country and with other leagues. But I think they absolutely have that. So that's kind of where I stand on Clemson going into this year. Jacob, you got anything on Clemson before we move on to Duke?
Oh snap. Not, I mean, not really. You guys probably covered everything. I mean, one of my favorite receivers is Bryant Wesco. So I'm excited to see what they can do there. They're getting that SMU transfer running back, Chris Johnson Jr. in. So that'll be interesting. Can you guys hear me still?
Yeah.
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 Okay, cool, cool, cool. Yeah, and then the defense, we'll see what happens with that. You talked about London Merritt from Colorado. strong from Oklahoma. So not much else to add on Clemson.
Absolutely. So we move on to Duke. Manny Diaz entering his third year, and he now has a conference championship under his belt. He loses his quarterback, though, and he loses his best wide receiver, both jetted off to South Beach to take their talents there. So now we have Duke entering a year where they're the reigning champs. Very interesting spot for them to be in after a year last year where I felt like even though they won the league, I still feel like it was kind of disappointing. Saw a lot of weird losses. Lost to UConn. UConn had a good year. We talked about them a lot last year. But this was a weird team. And now you enter a year where the schedule it doesn't get much easier. Like you do have that game at Tulane, could be a revenge spot. At Illinois, kind of tough. At Georgia Tech could be a toss up. At Virginia for an ACC rematch. The end of the schedule really tough at Miami, Clemson, and then at Wake Forest. So this is a team that I still have going bowling. I don't know if they'll be competing for the league this year, especially with ACC tiebreaker rules pending some change.
I'll go ahead, I guess. So I mean, when I went through Duke's schedule, it was kind of like one of those things. Like when you're filling out like the March Madness bracket, and you're just like starting to just get repetitive of like picking like random stuff. That's how I felt kind of filling their schedule out because I'm like Tulane, like I have no idea, and then they go to Illinois and like maybe it's Big Ten bias. I pick Illinois there, and then like you're going down the line, and like I have them beating Stanford, William Mary, and then it's like at Virginia they could win, but like I have no idea. So I have them going 6-6, but it's kind of interesting when I looked at like their offense, how like the outlook of it looks. They did bring back Nate Shepard, which was like their 1,000-yard rusher last season. So in the running back position, you think that they're probably going to be pretty solid. They have a transfer in from Rutgers as well. But then other than that, I don't know much about their quarterback. He was at San Jose State prior to coming to Duke. But I didn't really watch him much. But obviously, if you're going to be replacing Darian Mensah, you have pretty big shoes to fill. I mean, the defensive side of the ball as well. In my opinion, from at least what I read, is kind of like a lot of question marks. Like I don't really know how strong they'll be. And after they just went what 7-5 last year and then won the conference, I still think that they're kind of sitting at like that 6-6 mark. I think they could go to a bowl game though.
Yeah, I'm a little lower on Duke than you guys. I think what they've lost offensively with Mensa is going to be bigger than you guys, I think, realize, or maybe not. We'll find out when we see how this new QB fits into their system. But other than the running back, they lost most of their offense. They lost a good part of their defense. And you would think with Manny Diaz being a defensive minded coach, he's always had a very solid defense wherever he's been at coaching. They'll be okay. But even last year, I thought like Bryan said, they had weird losses to teams that they shouldn't have lost to, like a UConn. And I could see that coming happening in this season too against like, I don't know, you said they play like a William and Mary. I could
Yeah.
see like
Mhm.
them potentially losing like that type of game because when you don't have much going on offense, it's tough to like keep going and going and going. I'm just not big on this team this year. I see him personally going like a 4-8, 5-7 type of season. I think it's gonna be a really bad year for Manny Diaz there, to be honest with you.
Well, if you think about it too, and this is kind of weird for a Manny Diaz team. He has a defensive background, right? I feel like the defense really gave up a lot of their games for them last year. You had a quarterback like Darian Mensah, you had a 1,000 plus yard rusher in Nate Shepard, and I mean, it just felt like shootouts all the time. Or when Mensah had a bad game, defense couldn't pull their weight for the offense. And the defense really didn't bring in a ton of players. They brought in some cornerbacks, a guy from Stanford, Western Kentucky, North Texas. But they didn't replace anybody on their front seven. They didn't get any transfers. They're just trusting their players that were backups or maybe started last year as well on the defensive line and linebackers. And so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I'm not too high on Duke as well.
I wonder if, because some of the transfers that they did get, I wonder if it's because of like the academic standards at Duke. because I see a couple Ivy League guys, and this goes for a few ACC schools, a couple Ivy League guys, a couple guys who, coming from other schools that are pretty good, like a Stanford or a Cal, or a Yale. Like it's probably very hard to find a guy to transfer in. So if you're at a school like Duke, like if you're a player, number one, like I don't think you're probably wanting to transfer out as frequently as maybe some guys at some of these other schools, some other public schools. But a place like Duke, like you probably are sticking around a little bit.
Yeah, I also had another thought. Like Duke is a major basketball school. Like that is their focus. When you're on the football team and stuff, you clearly don't get as many looks or as many fans come to your games. Even though last year they did have like when they had big games, they had fans show up. But like I think that's part of the issue too, is that they probably put a lot of their money into the NIL and basketball, and I think football kind of succumbs to that. Like they get left in the dark, which kind of stinks, especially as like a coach as Manny Diaz, who did win the ACC. You think they would put more into try to bring in more guys or try to keep Mensa or something like that, but it doesn't seem to go that way for them.
Yeah, and I think Manny Diaz, like, we're gonna be talking about a couple hot seat coaches here in a minute, but Manny Diaz, his seat is completely safe, and it's even safe if you go 3-9 this year
Yeah, no
with a
doubt.
schedule like this. I mean, you lost really key pieces, and it's very hard to retain. Like when you have all ACC players, like they're probably going to go elsewhere if they still have another year under the belt. So I think that this is a very safe job, and I think Manny Diaz is a great coach, and for what he did with Duke last year was phenomenal. So I'm curious to see what this will look like, but I have no thoughts right now on what I think it's going to be. I think get your wins early. I mean, if you start 3-1, that'll be nice. Like, yeah, kind of moving on to a hot seat. It's Florida State. Like we move on to Mike Norvell, ACC champ in 2023, followed it up with a 2-10 season. Last year, a little bit of an improvement. And they open up the year with New Mexico State and SMU. So I don't think that he's going to be out the door unless they lose that SMU game. If they lose that SMU game because the bye follows immediately after and then they go to Alabama, I could see that being a switch up mode for them. But if they win that game, like they beat Alabama last year. They were ranked number 8. They were ranked as high as number 8 after a win against Alabama last year. Pretty big win too early in the year. So I think that his seat is hot, but like he has absolutely every opportunity to keep this job. What's our outlook on the Seminoles this year?
Yeah. So you said you're thinking he might, if they start out with that loss against SMU, he might get fired then. I think they give
Yes,
him that week until they go to Bama. And then I think Bama absolutely pounds him and he gets fired after that because they got who Central Arkansas or something like that. That's what I think's
that's
going
a
to
good
happen.
point.
I think
That's a
Bama
good
is
point. It's like another
absolutely,
bye week.
Yeah.
absolutely roll them. And I like they brought in who Ashton Daniels at quarterback. I'm not very high on him. I actually think he's worse than Thomas Castellanos. So it was, or yeah, Castellanos. Uh, yeah, I'm not high. They have Deuce Robinson, who's a very good playmaker and stuff. Yeah, he'll make an impact for that team, but there really isn't much there at Florida State. I think they even know it's a rebuilding year, and I think he's going to get canned early in the season.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really disagree with the point about Alabama. I think that if even if they were to win this game against SMU early on, that there there's going to be so much hype, I feel like generated just because of the fact that they beat SMU with how good SMU's like projected to be and how good they were last season. Well, and the season before, I guess. Um, I don't see there's no way that they beat Alabama 2 years in a row, especially going into Tuscaloosa. I think that I agree with Brody that like Alabama could absolutely like throttle them. I don't know if he gets fired immediately after that though. Um, I think that if they were to go on and then drop those back-to-back games to Louisville and Miami, then like yeah, then it's done. But I just don't know if they would do it right after the Bama game. Because like what is the rest of the outlook of their season if they do fire him right then and there? Like where do you go from there? Because you're definitely going to lose those 2 games, and then right after that, after another bye week, you have Clemson. So I don't know. I mean, I have him sitting at like a generous 6-6 in the event that he stays. But I don't know if they're gonna make it to like the Miami or Clemson game with him as the coach.
Yeah, it's almost like I don't know if the fans want him to succeed.
You're 100% right. My
Yeah.
one of my best friends is a big Florida State fan, and he absolutely hate Norvell's guts. Hates him. Uh, I think they do want him to fail. I think what you saw last year too, because what did they finish last year? Well, it wasn't many wins. It was like what 3-9, 4-8. Uh,
Shit.
maybe I'm being generous with that, but the team quit like halfway through the season, and if you keep him around, that's exactly what's going to happen again. This team's going to quit. I'm not very high on this team again. I think like a 4-8, 5-7 type season for him. I don't see him bowling. Like I said, Ashton Daniels is nothing special at quarterback. They're gonna have to really rely on the run game. I think if they're gonna have anything to be celebrated about. So we'll see.
I don't know. This is tough for me
Yeah.
because I like you're saying, I think if they lose to Alabama, I don't think you can fire him after that because I think Alabama's going to be a top 10, top 15 team this year. And then they'll play Central Arkansas. They should win that. If I think if they have a losing record like halfway, midway through the season, then I think he's gone. And I think you have to move on. If you have a losing record like that, but if they have a loss or two, I think they'll ride out the season, and then if it's, I don't think Florida State fans are gonna love a 7-5, 6-6 bowl year. So I think he's gone after that. I think the only way he stays is if it's an 8 to 9 win season.
Yeah, I think he has to win 8 games. I don't think that they're going to be happy with 7 wins. This reminds me a lot of when Manny Diaz was at Miami. I don't think the fans at Miami wanted Manny Diaz. The administration definitely didn't. And FSU, I'm kind of feeling a little bit of the opposite. The administration, I feel like, tried to back him for as long as they could, but now you got the fans flipped. And that's when it's very hard to retain a coach. The good thing is you got some talent on offense. I know Ashton Daniels, we're iffy on him, but you got Deuce Robinson. He's
Yeah.
definitely a top 10 wide receiver in the ACC. And then Micaiah Danzy. He's the 400-meter ACC record holder. He is fast. He's a 44.3 400-meter guy in track. Like he's phenomenal. So you got some really good pieces. And well, let me ask you this: what if they're 3-1 and they lose to Alabama by 40? Is Diaz gone? I mean, not Diaz. Sorry, is Norvell gone?
So you're saying they beat SMU? He would stay. I think that home game's very important for him because that's where the fans will see him in person, whereas that Alabama game's on the road. I think no matter what happened, like I think that Alabama game's going to get out of hand quick because of what happened last year of Alabama losing there. I think Alabama's a way better roster front to back against Florida State. I think that SMU game's really going to be the one to see if he keeps his job or not.
Well,
What do you guys
if they
think?
win the SMU game, and then what if they go on and they have that tough stretch of Louisville, Miami, and Clemson? So like,
Oh yeah, then he could definitely get fired again.
Yeah, there are some crucial points in the season for him, and we kind of just laid them all out there for you. The bye week, the Central Arkansas game, and then that little stretch of a couple teams there that we really like. So it's going to be a wild season for FSU in that fan base because if they go 8-4, I don't think that he gets fired, but I don't think that's enough to get him out of the woodshed. That means
I mean, if they go 8-4, that means they have to beat SMU, and then they have to win against Pittsburgh, NC State, and Florida three in a row to finish out the year.
or they upset someone and lose to Pitt.
Yeah.
Kitty's happen. Yeah, we're going to be following Florida State closely, especially those first 4 weeks of the year, as we got hot seat watch going on. We can continue to talk about Florida State, but moving on to Georgia Tech. Brent Key entering his fifth year, 27-20 overall. He loses his quarterback, Haynes King. He was an awesome, awesome machine for that offense. But now we look towards the future. So we got a couple of different Yellow Jackets returning. Not many guys who have taken a lot of offensive snaps of notoriety. So it's going to be a very weird year for Georgia Tech. I consider it a transition year, but Brent Key is a good coach. I think he's someone who could coach through something like this. You open up with Colorado, then you host Tennessee. So we're going to know this team really early, what they look like against bad competition and good competition.
Yeah, their non-conference schedule is crazy. They got Tennessee, Louisville, and then obviously they play Georgia every year. That's a very tough non-con. Uh,
Oh,
the
yeah.
interesting thing about this team is going to be the quarterback again. They bring in Mendoza, Fernando's brother, Alberto, from Indiana, and he barely played for them. He came in for some snaps for them. He looked okay from what I remember. We'll see how he fits into that system. I think you're kind of right, though. This is kind of a rebuilding year, and they're one of those middle of the pack teams that will probably go like 6-6 or 7-5, right around there.
Yeah.
One of my favorite players for this Georgia Tech team is Justice Haynes. They got him from Michigan. He rushed for 857 yards. He was sixth in the country in 7.1 yards per carry. So I'm really excited to see what they can do with him on offense. We kind of talked about they've lost a lot of good players. They've lost Haynes King. They've lost an Eric Rivers at wide receiver. They've lost some good running backs as well. Jamal Haynes from last year. So um, they'll have to reload on offense. We'll see what the younger Mendoza can do as well.
Yeah, I don't really know what the outlook is for their offense as far as the receivers go. I mean, they brought in a couple transfers. One of them is 6'4". It's mostly FCS guys though. They have somebody from Elon. They have a player from Dartmouth, and then one of the only transfers that they seem to have brought in would be um, tight end Gavin Harris from New Mexico State, from like, the group of five, group of six level. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be tricky. That I think they can win that Colorado game. I think they're going to get a couple wins against like Mercer and Stanford and Boston College. But the Tennessee game, I think Tennessee and Virginia Tech, I think, are two games that's going to tell a lot about what Georgia Tech is in 2026.
Yeah, there's a couple games that I think, you have to win to go bowling and you have those opportunities. So this is a team that absolutely like could make a stance. But also like I would totally understand if they were to just finish 6-6. Brent Key really, to his credit, he's raised the standard at Georgia Tech. He's done a really nice job, done more with less. And then as we've talked about the Dartmouth transfer, that Ivy League to ACC pipeline just continues. Classic. Okay, moving on. We could go back to Georgia Tech at any point, but Louisville, they're one of those teams in the ACC with Jeff Brom at the helm that I really like this year. Opening up in Nashville against Ole Miss. That's a really, really fun opening game. You got Lincoln Kienholz, the transfer from Ohio State, at quarterback. He's the bona fide starter for the Cardinals. He was somebody who late in the spring, he was in that quarterback battle at Ohio State with Julian Sayin. And he was the backup, but he came in a couple different points, and I thought he did good. He trusted Jeremiah Smith when he threw the ball. He ran the ball well. He's someone who he fits the Jeff Brom offense because he's going to be able to take off and run. And I think he's going to see the game slow down against some of these opponents that Louisville has versus some of the ones that he had to play in the Big Tens. What's the outlook on Louisville going into this year?
I'm super, super high on Louisville. I think that schedule is very favorable. Their three toughest games in the conference are all at home. They got SMU, Florida State, and Pitt. Like they avoid Clemson, they avoid Miami. Like they have a very favorable schedule for them. Where I think this is the year where they really got to try to go for it to get in the ACC championship. Like you said, Lincoln Klein holds. Uh, you're higher than on him than I am. I think he's more of a game manager type. He can use his legs, which is a positive for him, but I'm not big on his passing. What's really going to help this Louisville team, though, is Isaac Brown. He's coming back. He was unbelievable last year. I'm sure he'll even be better this year. And then they have one of the best edge rushers in the ACC with Clev Lubin, is how I think you say it. Clev Lubin. He's one of the best edge rushers in the ACC, and I think this team is definitely. I don't even know if you'd call them a dark horse to make the ACC championship, but they're one of those teams that are definitely in contention for it.
Yeah, I mean Isaac Brown on the offensive side has been great, and then they also have I guess it's Kewan Brown as well paired with him. They did bring in a couple of receivers. It's seeming that the receiving core is like almost all new guys. I think that they did dip into the transfer portal quite a bit. One of them is from Vanderbilt, one of them's from Florida State. So you're getting a couple of, high quality receivers to go and play alongside. His name just completely slipped my mind, the quarterback, Keinholz. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that this team, the thing is for me is that I feel like it seems to come down to like when they play Kentucky at the end of the year. For me, it's always like a toss up in a way. So like I think like they'll lose to Ole Miss at the beginning of the year. I currently have them losing to SMU, but other than that, I think that they could be really competitive in the conference this year. I think they can probably win at NC State. I think they could be able to maybe scrape out that win against Georgia Tech late in the year. I mean, they could, if they beat Kentucky, in my mind, would be two losses. I have them right now at 9-3, but I'm still like very high on them. I don't know if they're going to make a trip to Charlotte or not, but I think that if they can build upon what they've had the past couple years, they'll be pretty successful.
Yeah, I think that they have a lot in front of them. If they win that Ole Miss game, I think that that game is so huge for the ACC in general. That might be one of the biggest ACC games. That and the Clemson LSU game, I think, are just massive. Obviously, Miami Notre Dame too. We can talk about that in a second here. But Louisville, if they are able to beat Ole Miss to start the year, we could be talking about a multi-bid ACC for the college football playoff. Because, like you said, Brody, the Louisville schedule really plays out. You avoid the big dogs, so you wouldn't have a lot of those teams battling against each other and taking those losses. So I really like Louisville as well. I think it's a team that, yeah, like you said, we can't really call them a dark horse because when you look at that schedule, like man, the barn's wide open. Like that's pretty favorable, and everything comes at a really good time. So that's kind of where we stand on Louisville. Anything else before we head to Miami?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh,
I was
God.
gonna just say with like the Ole Miss game, you obviously know how good Trinidad Chambliss is. You know how Kewan Lacey is one of the top backs in the country, and we've seen how good that defense can play. But I'm really curious to see like what they actually look like in a fresh start, like in a new season without Lane Kiffin. Because who knows, Louisville might be able to win that game. It is neutral site, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be very interesting with those two teams, especially with like how different their their I don't want to say expectations, but how different things look for both of them. Like one of them's coming in with a new coach, the other one is like building with players that they've had for a couple years with a coach that's been there. So that'll be a very interesting game.
Yeah, I would say that that SMU game's really the one that I'm eyeing up. I think that's one of the most important games in like all of the ACC schedule. The fun fact I was going to say is Louisville and SMU have played four times. SMU's beat them all four times, so that would be a massive win for Louisville to get their first one against SMU at home in a big year where they can make the ACC championship.
Wow, I did not know that stat. That's a good one.
Did
Brody
you
coming in
look
with the
that up or did
numbers.
you just pull that out of is that just ball
So
knowledge right there? Like
during my research, AI was super helpful.
I thought you just knew that straight up. I was like, wow, that's crazy.
I love it. Yeah. Speaking of super helpful, you got AI and then you got DM. That's Darian Mensah for Miami. He transfers over from Duke, almost a 4,000-yard passer last year, 34 touchdowns, only six interceptions for a team that really struggled with an offensive line. So I see this Miami roster, and you have Malachi Tony. He got yards everywhere. They brought him on screens. They dumped and dunked to him. Then you got Mark Fletcher. He's one of the best returning running backs in the country. You got talent all over the field. The only place off on this team that maybe took a step back is the defensive line, just because the guys who ended up getting drafted. But overall, this is really a really good team. This offense probably stacks up against any in the country, I would say, as the best overall offense heading into 2026. What do we think about the national runner-ups, Miami, heading into this year?
Yeah, like we've talked about it before the podcast started, but they're the clear heavy favorite. There's a couple things I guess that may kind of want to step back. I feel like they always find a way to lose a game they're not supposed to during the season. Uh, you said their only decline was the defensive line, Brian, right?
Yeah, maybe.
So their offensive line, they lost four starters from their offensive line last year. Their starting offensive line are expecting to be starting offensive line this year has 18 combined starts. I still think that's going to be a huge issue for them this year. They play a team with a very tough defensive line. I could see that being trouble for them with Mensa at quarterback. But yeah, they got the weapons. They got Mark Fletcher. They got Kadarius Toney. They should hit all cylinders. They play at Notre Dame this year, which isn't a conference game, but like you said, that's going to be a massive game for the ACC in general, just to build notoriety for them. But yeah, they'll go anywhere from 10-2 to 12-0.
I currently have them as their only loss being at Notre Dame, which I had already talked about when we did the independent one the other day. I was like, I think if maybe I'm wrong, but maybe I was flipped. I thought I was pretty adamant on the fact that Notre Dame would win that one. But I think when I look at like their schedule, I don't know, you guys can let me know if you kind of agree with this or disagree with this. They start out at Stanford, then they play Florida A&M, they're at Wake Forest and Central Michigan. I think those are like four really good games for them to kind of like build the mold of what they're going to be this season. And then they go to Clemson, and Clemson starts out playing at LSU and at California is like two of their biggest games. So I think Miami sets themselves up really good to beat Clemson in that game. And then they would play Florida State, Pittsburgh, North Carolina before they go to Notre Dame. So, I mean, I think that they're in a position that like they would go in to play that game in South Bend undefeated, which at that point in the year, I don't know what will happen. I'm just predicting right now that they lose to Notre Dame, but they could very well be an undefeated team.
Yeah, they could easily, not easily, it's never easy, but they could go 12-0. Like, I think before the bye, I think those are all wins. I'm at least chalking them up as wins, including the game at Clemson, obviously, is your toughest one. This schedule really plays out for you because the final three games, you're going to basically know if you're in or not. Like, there are
Yeah.
three home games, which is great. You don't have to go to the cold weather outside of the Notre Dame game, which is early November, but then Duke at home, Virginia Tech at home, Boston College at home. Like, nobody else, I think, maybe, well, NC State gets a two 3 game home stands NC State gets, but this is the only other one in the conference that I could see is this one for that's a conference 3 game home stand is what I should say. So I think that this one really plays out for them. That game at Notre Dame is going to tell us a lot about both teams. I don't think that either one of these teams can really afford two losses with their schedule. We talked about the Notre Dame schedule the other day. It's cupcakes, right? Like, so they can't go 10-2, in my opinion. I don't know if Miami can either. What do you guys think?
Could you imagine if that game, when they play each other, they're both undefeated? I mean, that could be the biggest matchup of the season if it plays out that way. Because when you look at Notre Dame's schedule, they have Wisconsin, Rice, Michigan State, Purdue, North Carolina, Stanford, BYU, Navy, which we had talked about the other day that like BYU was the toughest game before they get to the Miami game. So if they're both unbeaten, that is literally setting it up exactly how it was last year, where they have head to head against each other for a playoff spot.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, this will be a really tough out for anybody going up against them. But if you look at their playoff run last year, that A&M game was close. The Ohio State game was close. The Ole Miss game was close. Like, this is a team that under Mario Cristobal has played some interestingly close games. Not that those playoff games shouldn't have been, but they've lost games that you really wouldn't have expected them to do on the account of coaching. That at least people would blame coaching. I don't know if I would in every circumstance, but when I look at Miami, that could be a downfall for them too. And Brody mentioned the offensive line. I mentioned the defensive line. We'll see a lot of new faces coming in this year.
I was gonna say
And
one
then
other
we,
thing.
yeah,
You talked about like how they play a bunch of home games later in the year. I remember last year that they played a bunch of home games throughout like October and November, and they had like maybe one really cold weather game when they went to Pitt at the end of the
yeah,
year, and
Yeah.
that kind of like helped them like momentum wise. You played so many home games, then they got into the playoff and they were ready to like go on the road. So it might set up very similar last season for them.
Yeah, yeah. This is one of those schedules that I feel like the ACC kind of got together and made and said we don't want to send them to cold weather. That's our best team. That's our best bet right now. Miami looking for their first conference championship as a member of the ACC. Then we go to North Carolina. It's Bill Belichick. It's his second year at the helm of the Tar Heels, and he gets to open up in Dublin against TCU, a team that rocked them last year in Chapel Hill. What's the outlook on year two of Bill Belichick? Lost his quarterback, kind of in a weird phase.
Yeah, this team is going to be dreadful, I think, because they brought in Billy Edwards, and if people don't remember Billy Edwards, he was the quarterback at Wisconsin last year, and I believe he tore his ACL, so I don't know how healthy he's going to be coming into the season. Uh, and then you just got question marks all around the team, even the coaching staff. You don't know how in Bill Belichick truly is. Uh, the one thing I am excited for is the memes that come out of this team this season. That was very funny last season to see all the Bill Belichick memes, Jordan Hudson memes. So I do enjoy those when North Carolina plays.
Yeah, I mean they had an interesting hire. They had brought in Bobby Petrino to run the
That's right.
offense. Was that this season that they just brought him in?
Yeah, this will be his first year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Billy Edwards, I feel like he's been around for like 8 years. I remember him playing at Maryland like a while ago. Yeah, I don't know. I personally, when I filled out the schedule earlier this week, I don't even have him making a bowl game, but I don't know. Yeah, that could all change. They're just a really tough team to read.
Yeah, very tough team to read. I think Bill Belichick, I don't consider him a hot seat coach, but I do consider him, as we talked about earlier this offseason, a prove it year coach. Like, you need to show us something, show us that you could compete a little bit. Brings in some questionable transfers, guys that we really haven't seen. Like Billy Edwards, of course, and we know he was injured, of course. But you bring in Lehigh wide receiver Mason Humphrey from the Patriot League. That's an interesting pickup because he was a star in the Patriot League. I don't know what that means, but Bill Belichick, he's been known to take these lesser school players, these stars from these places, and turn them into stars on a high level. So
Well,
it could happen.
well, he's known for doing that in the NFL. He really
Yeah.
isn't doing that in college yet. So we'll see. I truly think it's a completely different game, college and NFL coaching wise. And year one was just a complete failure for him. So I like you said, they really didn't bring in anyone of note. They brought in lesser guys from smaller schools that most people have never heard of. I just don't see it going any differently. I see him going 1-11, 2-10. I think it's gonna be a very bad year in UNC.
Here's my thing about North Carolina is like I'm struggling to find the wins because like TCU, I'm gonna take TCU at the beginning. They go to Clemson, that's a loss in my head. They play Notre Dame. I think that they get obliterated by Notre Dame. And then it's like you're at Pittsburgh and you're at Duke and then you're at Virginia at some point. So like I needed to give them wins in some of those. And like I gave them Duke. So it's like you could also lose that game. I don't know where the wins come. Syracuse maybe, UConn maybe. Other than that, I don't really see them winning a lot of games.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think North Carolina would be out on him if they were to have a 2-win season?
That's a great question, and I don't know if you can do that to the goat, uh, but they might. They really might.
I think that the schedule this year is pretty difficult, so like I think that it's almost like I don't know if you can base it off of this season. I would give him like one more year, in my opinion.
Well, how
Yeah.
long, Brian?
He's
You would know better. How long was his contract? It was only for a couple of years. Was it a 3-year contract? I think it was. So they may let him go for his final year, but wasn't he supposed to give the reins to his son after that too? I don't know if that's
It
going to
was
go into
a
effect.
it was a 5-year deal.
5 year. Well,
oh
okay. Well,
wow.
I'm shocked by that. I thought it was shorter. Yeah, yeah. They may
I guess
fire him.
no most Most new coaches, I feel like, get the 3-year deals classically, but I feel like, and rightfully so, you get some clout when you're Bill Belichick and when you've won 6 Super Bowls. So if you're a school like North Carolina and you could bring in a coach like that, you could afford to give him a little bit more time than you would give, just some coordinator that you hired from the Power Four level.
Yeah, the thing
It'll be
about North
interesting.
Carolina, and I hate that we keep talking about this awful team, but they got they got worse when he came in last year. Like they weren't even good before him, but they somehow got worse. And if it even gets worse than last year, I struggle to see him stay. I don't know. Maybe he'll resign. Maybe they won't fire him. Maybe he'll just stay. I'm stepping back now. Maybe my son will take over. Something along those lines.
I could see it going that way. Like I have a hard time seeing a headline like that UNC fires Bill Belichick. I could
Yeah,
see UNC Bill Belichick part ways,
yeah,
right? But it's coming from the NFL, you see it all the time going college to NFL, and coaches sometimes struggle to adjust to the speed of the NFL or kind of the coaching aspect where it's less recruiting and more so doing the actual coaching. But it's kind of the other way when it comes to looking at NFL to college is that maybe you're overthinking some of the things that you once had to think about. Like maybe you don't have to think about certain blitz packages that you had to think about in the NFL or certain coverages that you just don't see in the ACC or the talent or the speed of the players that you just don't see. So it could be something like that, but I know the North Carolina Bill Belichick experience has been an interesting one, and we're going to see year 2 of it. Going on to NC State, Dave Doran, someone who is pretty proven on the college level because he is entering his 14th season as head coach of the Wolfpack. Obviously, he's always making bowl games, and they go into a year where I feel like the fan base wants to see a little bit more. I think that they want to see a 9 or 10 win season. Is this the type of schedule that makes out for that for NC State?
yeah. It is favorable, I guess you could say. They avoid Clemson and Miami, like we talked about. They avoid the two big dogs. Uh, I, last season they finished strong. They won 4 of their last 5, I believe. Their one loss coming to Pitt, and that was a just a completely ugly game that I think they want to forget about. Shout out Pitt. I can't wait to talk about them. But yes, CJ Bailey, we'll see how year 2 goes for him. I think he's going to have a better season than he did last year. He'll hopefully improve, and I think this is an upper echelon mid table team, like 8-4, 7-5. That's kind of where I see him going.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at CJ Bailey, he's coming into his junior season.
Oh, it's a junior
Um,
season. Oh,
yeah, so if you look at the QBR from last season, he's second behind Cade Klubnik. So like he did have a great year last year. I know that they lost Hollywood Smothers, the running back to Texas, but I don't know who's really filling his shoes off the top of my head at running back because I know that that was a big part of their offense. They also lost Justin Joly, the tight end, to the NFL draft. On the defensive side of the ball, though, they did bring in a couple of good guys in the secondary. They brought in King Mack from Penn State. He was kind of up and down when he was with the Nittany Lions, and then they have edge rusher Harvey Dyson, who had 8 sacks last year and 12 tackles for loss in the American Conference Championship. So like that was a great player from Tulane. Um, I mean, I don't know. This team, like you said, like it could be they could very well go like 6-6 or 7-5. Right now, what I had them at was 9-3, but I'm also like very high on them. Just because I like that offense. I think even when you lose that tight end and you lose Hollywood Smothers, I think that they have enough guys that can like fill those gaps. And I think CJ Bailey could have an even better year this year than last year. Um, it's gonna be tough, I know, for him because he's gonna be rivaled by guys like JKS and Darian Mensah, obviously now, but yeah, I think that they can still be a very good team. I have them dropping games at Vanderbilt, Louisville, and then against Cal at home.
I think that that's pretty fair. CJ Bailey, and when we obviously talk about Mensa and when we talk about JKS, those are, in my opinion, easily, and Kevin Jennings at SMU, I can't forget him. Like
Yeah,
those are some of
that's
the
what I
top
couldn't think of
guys.
his name.
Yeah. So those are some of the guys who I feel like coming back, and it's especially helpful for a school like NC State because they're bringing back the guy who was on their team. So I feel like this is a favorable schedule yet again. You get Louisville at home. I like that you get Wake at home. I like that you get Cal and Duke at home. You do close on the road at Florida State and at UNC, but both of those programs, we have no idea where either one of those schools are going to be in weeks 12 and 13 to end the year. I think that this team, I think the ceiling is actually 10 or 11 wins.
Wow.
I think that their schedule is so favorable, especially in non-conference compared to like the other ACC schools. Like that Virginia game at the beginning of the year is gonna be very interesting because like if they lose that, then like that kind of derails a lot. But winning that game, then you're gonna play Richmond. Like I think at Vanderbilt's a loss, but like you're playing against the ACC, so like that's I mean the SEC, so like it's not really gonna hurt them a lot in the grand scheme of things of making the ACC championship. I mean, you have App State, you have Louisville at home and Wake at home, like you said. So like it is kind of a favorable schedule.
See, the thing with them is that, like you said, that first game is going to really tell us everything we need to know about NC State. They win that first game, they're definitely going to be a dark horse to make the ACC championship just because their schedule is favorable.
Right.
They lose that game, that's going to be demoralizing going into a bye week and going into several other games. I think that Louisville game at home is going to be tough for them. I think even traveling at Florida State, that's always a tough atmosphere is going to be tough for them. Uh, we'll just see what this team's made of, though. I think you said CJ Bailey didn't have the greatest of years last year. The game I just have stuck in my mind is the Pitt game where he was just dreadful. Uh, well, yeah, we'll see. I just think 8-4, 7-5. I think they're one of those teams that will also just. I feel like they drop one of those just games they shouldn't lose to. They'll find a team in the ACC and they'll just lose to them, like a North Carolina, Wake Forest, one of those, like sneak one off them.
Yeah, one of the Tobacco Road games. Yeah, NC State,
Syr
interesting.
Syracuse will beat them in Riley on like a double in like double
Yeah,
overtime or
it'll be
something.
something dumb like that. Yeah.
That would be classic ACC football. And a team that is known for those types of losses is Pat Narduzzi and Pitt, man. Like
Facts.
they're known for pulling them. They pull it off, and then sometimes they just lose to a MAC team, and they do
Yeah.
open up with Miami of Ohio. Fun fact: Pitt and Central Michigan both play both Miamis. Pitt plays both
Oh
Miami
wow.
schools, and Central Michigan plays both Miami schools. So just a kind of fun thing. But Miami,
That's
Ohio, then you got UCF at home. UCF has Alonzo Barnett the third, James Madison's playoff quarterback. He's going to be at UCF. You get that game at home. You do open up four straight home games, Syracuse, Bucknell after that. And then you get really into the bulk of your conference schedule. You travel to Miami, travel to Louisville, travel to Cal. So I think everything is really going to be covered for them in week 8 and beyond.
Yeah, Pitt. So I'm a massive Pitt fan, as you can tell. They're consistently somewhere between 9-3 and 6-6 every year, but ultimately somewhere in between that. So usually they're either 8-4, 7-5. The very bright thing is going to be Mason Heinschel at quarterback, and then the fact that we brought back our offensive coordinator, Cade Bell. Uh, Year three of Cade Bell. The last time we had an offensive coordinator come back for his third year was Kenny Pickett's senior year with Mark Whipple, and that's the year last time they won the ACC championship. Uh, they bring back a good bit of weapons. Their O line is going to be a lot better than what it was last year. Their defense is what I'm concerned about. I think this year it's going to be a more offensively heavy team than defensively heavy team, which is what we've kind of been relying on since Kenny left. Uh, but their O line, and fun fact here, their right tackle, I believe, Brian Bear, he's the highest rated player in the NCAA football game coming out for 2027. So,
Wait, what?
yeah, the right tackle is the highest
Wait,
rated right tackle.
really?
What? Yeah, the
What?
highest rated right tackle in the game plays for Pitt. Uh, and then you
I think
bring.
Brian thought that you meant player in
Oh
general.
no, not overall.
I
No, right.
thought I thought you did. I thought you did it first, but that makes more sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're just the right tackle position. He's the highest rated right tackle in all of college football. And then we bring in we bring back Boozy Turner, who ended the season just unbelievable. That Georgia Tech game he took over. So yeah, I think we'll probably go around 7-5, 8-4, but I think it will be a good year as long as Mason himself continues to improve, because then you can continue to improve going into next year, junior year, then senior year. Hopefully, you can compete for an ACC title.
Who did he take over for last year? Eli Holstein.
Eli Holstein, who transferred to Virginia, and he ended up losing. Well, I think he lost the quarterback job to Bo Prabula.
Oh,
Yeah,
at Virginia Tech or Virginia?
Virginia.
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 Yeah, so you have Bo starting at Virginia, and then you have Ethan Grunkmeyer at Virginia Tech.
Yep.
What do we think about James Franklin versus Pitt? That week 5 game, those two guys have squared off against each other a time or two.
I cannot wait, Bryan. Like I told you before this, I'm almost going to that game now. I think me and a couple of my friends are getting tickets for that. Uh, James Franklin is a guy who, throughout his career at Penn State, loved talking trash on Pitt. Uh, so I think the boys will come in ready for that one, and I truly think we're going to go into Blacksburg and beat them.
Okay. I mean,
I'm really curious to see what the environment at Virginia Tech is like when they do like the blackout and everything. Like when they have like Enter Sandman and all that. Like, because obviously it's like really good, but I wonder what it's going to be like this season, like with having a new coach and everything. Like, is it going to be like even like crazier? Like, I guarantee it is, but like,
I would imagine so. 'Cause
yeah.
what's weird, we'll get into Virginia Tech in a little bit, but I'll talk about when we get to Virginia Tech.
I don't
all
really have
right.
anything to add with Pitt. I have them also at like a 7-5 type of a record.
Yeah. Narduzzi's known for pulling some good seasons out. He's also known for plenty of 7-5s as well, as we've known Pitt to be over the course of the past couple of years.
Yeah,
A team
one more
that's
thing for Pitt. My bad, Bryan.
yeah,
One more thing
no,
for
you're good.
Pitt. They're tough conference games all on the road this season. Uh,
Mm.
I feel like we get the easier conference games at home, and then we travel to Miami, we travel to Virginia Tech, we travel to Louisville, travel to Georgia Tech. Uh, you'll learn about a lot this team on the road. I think we pull one or two of those off, but it'll be a tough season, I think.
Yeah, I think Georgia Tech's at home. Cal's on the road, or maybe I'm reading that
Cal,
wrong.
yes, Cal, you're right, Cal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. The road schedule is probably the toughest in the ACC. A team that's transitioned really well into Power 4 play is SMU. Like we saw them make their conference championship game last year. They weren't even having that good of a year. They had lost to TCU out of conference, and they aren't playing the Iron Skillet for the foreseeable future. So that was kind of the last time they're playing for hopefully not too long. But this team late in the year was still in ACC contention. And we saw them continue to rattle off wins and continue to stay in the hunt as so many other teams did. Rhett Lashley, he enters his 5th year, 38-17 overall. We talk about Kevin Jennings a decent amount on this show. This is a Kevin Jennings podcast because I really like him at quarterback, one of the most mobile guys in the conference. He was able to make up for a lot of mistakes that I feel like were caused by the opposing or by his offensive line or by his wide receivers. I feel like he was able to scramble, get out of situations, direct traffic where it needed to go, and make big plays. So I really like Kevin Jennings as a returning starter. I do think that the offense will be a little bit improved, even though they were pretty decent last year. So SMU is another team to watch out for, and they're ranked in the top 25 of ESPN's FPI.
yeah. This is the team that I have Miami playing in the ACC championship. I have them going 10-2 overall because they do play at Notre Dame. I think that will be a loss, and then I have them losing one of Louisville or Virginia. So pick your poison there. But like I said, I think that SMU Louisville game, that's going to be the one to decide who is the opponent for Miami in the ACC championship. And like you said, Kevin Jennings is unbelievable. This is his final year. He's been a starter for what, 3 or 4 years now. I feel like he's been there for
It felt like 8, yeah.
yeah, it feels like 8. Rhett Lashley's a very proven coach. He's been to the playoffs. Yeah, very high on this team. I guess the one downfall is they lost all 4 defensive linemen. So they had to rebuild there. But other than that, yeah, this team's gonna be very good.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on them as well. I actually also have them at 10-2. I don't know in what form you have them at 10-2, but I had them dropping that game to Florida State and then just going on like an absolute tear through everybody and then losing to Notre Dame. Um, I think it seems as though that they have like a pretty um good like portion of returners on the defensive side of the ball, especially like, in their linebacking and their linebacker part of it. The running back position is going to be interesting just because they had like such great running backs last year, and I believe most of them are gone either to the draft or transferring. They brought in a couple of guys in the running back position. They brought in one from Cal. They brought in a couple receivers from Bama, East Carolina, and then they have a tight end from Florida State. So like they do have a pretty good sample size of like transfer running backs and receivers coming in to pair alongside Kevin Jennings. I mean, I think they're going to be just as good as they have been. They've adjusted very well to playing in the ACC. It'll just be interesting to see when they play like at Louisville, when they play Cal, and then we don't know what Virginia Tech's going to be like. Those three games are kind of interesting to me. And then obviously, if they put themselves in the same position they have been in with like making the playoff, that Notre Dame game at the end of the year is huge.
Yeah, that Notre Dame game was one we talked about as Notre Dame basically is playing a three-game season at BYU, hosting Miami, and then hosting SMU. If they
Yeah,
lose two of
definitely.
those games, yeah, if they lose two of those games, I don't want to hear them talked about in the playoff conversation. If they're 10-2 with any losses on their schedule, outside of two of those, I don't want them in the playoff. Like that would be crazy. So they are playing a three-game season. That is not as big of a game for SMU as it is for Notre Dame, but that's why I feel like you were right when you said, Lucas. Like I feel like that they might just roll through a lot of this schedule, and then just get annihilated by Notre Dame, but still be very much in the ACC championship hunt. But and then Brody, you mentioned like that game at Louisville is so huge, so early on. We're talking about week three football, but we're talking about huge conference championship game implications because we think that the winner of that's probably going to be facing off against Miami. Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch the Mustangs this year. Stanford, that's the team we'll hit up next. Isn't Andrew Luck the general manager of Stanford right now?
He is, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, they open up against Hawaii. Not a great season for the Cardinal last year, but it's a new era over there in Palo Alto, California. So we'll see what they bring in this upcoming year. Who's got an outlook on Stanford going into this year?
This is another team. It's a rebuilding year. They brought in a new head coach, who I believe was like best friends with Andrew Luck or like played with Andrew Luck at some point.
They're
Uh,
buddies. I
so
think they played together. Yeah.
yeah. So we'll see how that goes. Other than that, I don't have much on them. I didn't really look into this team. They'll probably go like 2-10, 3-9. Yeah, you would know them better than I do.
The
Um,
quarterback is Davis
I
Warren
was
from
literally just
Michigan.
gonna say if you want to
Yeah.
know
Oh,
anything,
really?
it's Davis Warren.
Oh, they might go 1-11 then.
He did beat Ohio State.
How much? What was his passing yards that game, Brian?
I think he had like 70,
Yeah.
something like that. He was somebody. He's 24 years old. Wow. So he's one of the older players in college football now that we finally got that 5 for 5 rule passed through the NCAA. So he's someone who comes in, proven leader. I feel like this is someone who is needed on a rebuilding team. We'll see what he can provide for this team that has liked to run the ball in the past. But man, you got some interesting pieces. Micah Ford at running back, like he was pretty good last year, but Stanford overall was tough. And then you got a Yale transfer, Nico Brown as a receiver, another Ivy League to ACC pipeline.
It's very interesting to me that their schedule plays out the way that it does because I thought that maybe they would get like an FCS school at the very beginning after they obviously were going to play Hawaii, but they literally go from Hawaii to Miami. And then they end up playing Elon, but it's not until week 7. So I don't. I think they literally win two games. Like I don't really have much else on that. Like I think they're gonna. I think they could beat Hawaii, and then like they'll beat Elon maybe. Like
They didn't beat
unless
Hawaii last year. They lost to Hawaii
unless
last year.
yeah. Well, this that was in Hawaii. This is in Stanford, so I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they split. Unless Elon is like really good and they're like gearing up for like an FCS playoff push and like just smack Stanford somehow. I don't know. I think it's gonna be one or two wins.
The travel that this team has to make is ridiculous. You have to go out to the state of North Carolina to play Duke, and then you have to go there again 2 weeks later to play Wake Forest. Then you have to go to Indiana to play Notre Dame. Then out to Louisville, out to Virginia Tech, really far game. Like yours travel is crazy.
And they're
That's
playing NC State
ridiculous.
as well.
Yep, and you play NC State as well. Like that travel's egregious. That's horrible for college football. Hate that. Nothing like Stanford in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Syracuse. This is a team last year took a huge step back, one of the biggest drop offs from year to year. You got a Stanford shirt on, Lucas?
I got a Syracuse hoodie on. I was like, what can I
Oh,
wear to
Syracuse.
contribute to the ACC? And I had that.
That you're contributing more than what a lot of their team did last year to the sport because I barely watched Syracuse. They were just a nightmare. And then they did it closed the year out against Boston College, losing that game as well. 2 wins after a 10-win campaign with Kyle McCord at quarterback the year before. What's the outlook on Syracuse with this year? What do they need to do for the fan base to be kind of happy to continue on with Fran Brown?
I think they're a middle of the pack team. I think last year was kind of a fluke in the sense that their quarterback and Jelly got injured week 3, I think it was. So he didn't really get a chance to mesh with the offense, mesh with Fran Brown. This is year 2. He's coming back from an injury. Uh, I have a bunch of Notre Dame buddies, like I said. They loved him at Notre Dame when he came in for games and stuff. They think he was incredible. I think he started a couple games for them at one point. But we'll see. I think they'll be like a 5-7 to a 7-5 type team. I do like Fran Brown. I think he's a good recruiter, a good coach, a good guy to build a team in that area. I don't know what Syracuse could do better than him, to be honest with you. I think it would be foolish for them to even think about firing him.
And
Their
they have an
quarterback
issue,
room
right?
is very interesting.
I was
You,
looking at that because you got Amari Odom, who he did play
he was good at,
half the snaps for Kennesaw
yeah.
State.
And then Malachi Nelson is at Syracuse. Wow.
He was everywhere. He was at USC initially, then he went to Boise, and he lost that battle to Maddox Matson. Then he went to UTEP, did okay at UTEP. Now he's battling for the job. Syracuse.
I don't know. I mean, they have a couple of receivers that have come in that like I do recognize them. Like Cole Weaver from like I remember watching him in the MAC. Um, Elijah Moore from Florida State, and then Matt Alton that I only know him because of playing at Penn State. So like, I feel like it depends which quarterback ends up actually playing more
Yeah.
because those receivers aren't bad. Like on paper, I do remember watching most of them, but. I don't know. We'll see how Steve Angeli is, and like maybe I know that Amari Odom was a pretty good runner as well. So like maybe they can kind of like work in some packages where he takes some option plays or he might run the ball. I I don't know. I mean, I just don't really. I don't. That's the thing is like I don't know with all of those guys what that offense even looks like. So it's kind of hard to get a read on what they would do this season.
You have a lot of years of experience in that room. Like, and you might get in Jelly back. I haven't heard the latest on him.
I don't know. It's their schedule. I mean, like you're playing New Hampshire to start, so like that's at least you're gonna get your feet under you a little bit, and then like they play Cal and Pitt to start in conference play, and like in my head, I have those as both losses. Um, and then they go to UConn and Virginia, and then they play Louisville, so it's like it could really just like spiral very quickly for them.
It could. I mean, UConn dealing with a new coach, Jason Candle, who we talked about, brought in all of his guys from Toledo. So
Hmm.
you could be 2-2, and I feel like that'd be a pretty solid start if you're able to get to that.
Could, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
That's what I have
So
them at as 2 wins, which
Oh
is
well.
like,
that's it total.
yeah.
Hmm.
I just don't like when I look at their schedule and they're playing Virginia, Louisville, North Carolina, SMU, Clemson, and NC State all back to back. Like I don't know where they're winning.
See, the
At
thing about
Boston College.
I was just say the thing about the ACC though,
Yeah.
it's so weird where teams will lose one week to a team they shouldn't, and then they'll beat a
Yeah.
team who they shouldn't beat the next week. Like
I just
I
didn't know
feel like
which
that's
one of
this
those was going to be
Syracuse is like the
Syracuse.
yeah, I was gonna say Syracuse is like the perfect example of this year. I think where they're gonna pull off a couple wins they just should have no business winning.
That's what I said earlier. They're going to beat like Louisville or somebody in double
Yeah,
overtime.
exactly.
They're going to ruin someone's chance at making a bowl game or something in like October. And that team's going to look back and be like, man, why did we lose to Syracuse? Like we almost went 6-6, but we're 5-7 now. Ah, yeah. It'll be interesting. I like Fran Brown too. And I think he's great, made the right moves in the transfer portal for the Orange going into this year. Then we got Virginia. They opened up the season against NC State. That was supposed to be a game in Brazil, but thank God they moved it back to college campuses. These schools are, I believe, 2, 3 hours apart, so they're very close to each other. Virginia, they made the ACC championship last year under Tony Elliott. We talked about the quarterback position. Bo Pribula coming in from Missouri via Penn State. They do bring in Jakail Middlebrook from Middle Tennessee at running back. Like he was a solid player for a pretty bad Blue Raiders team last year. So he's someone who I think could add some excitement to the backfield and continue on. So this offense brought in some okay pieces. I'm not mad about it, and I think that the schedule not super difficult as far as the ACC standards go. Like you get a couple layups pretty early on.
Yeah, like you said, they brought in some very good players to like their entire wide receiver room is gone from last year. They brought in Rico Flores from UCLA. I think he's a really good addition. Bo Pabula, he had a pretty solid year at Missouri. So we'll see how he does in the ACC. SEC and the ACC are completely different leagues where the SEC is tougher. So I think we'll have a much better year with Virginia. Yeah, Tony Elliott had a great season last year being coach of Virginia. I don't think anyone thought that was a team that could make the ACC championship last year, and they somehow did. They choked in the ACC championship game, which stopped them from making the playoffs. But this is another team that I think can go like 8-4 to 10-2.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be as good as they were last year, and part of that is just because like of me thinking so highly of like all these other teams, but like you said, I mean there's a lot of upside to them. I think they'll definitely make a bowl game. It's just I don't know if they'll go 6-6, 7-5, or 8-4. Like it's gonna be somewhere within that range, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that they're definitely still in the hunt for definitely bowls as well. And I think if they make the ACC championship game, it'll be one of those situations where, well, hey, we avoided Miami like in the regular season, and we avoided Louisville, and somehow we just sat in and won 8 conference
Yeah.
games and made our way to play in Charlotte. And another team that's looking to do that is Virginia Tech. So James Franklin coming in his first year. I'm really excited for that Virginia at Virginia Tech closeout to end the year. Just Tony Elliott versus James Franklin is a really good coaching matchup. But Virginia Tech, I think that looking at this schedule, VMI, Old Dominion at Maryland, James Franklin owns Maryland at Boston College. That's 4-0 to start, and then they could easily go 0-4. Pitt at Cal, Georgia Tech at Clemson. What's the outlook on first year head coach James Franklin and this Hokie team?
I think it's going to be tougher than people think for him. I see this team going like barely making a bowl game, maybe a 6-6, 5-7 type. Like you said, all their tough ACC games also on the road this year. They got Miami, Clemson, SMU, Cal all on the road. I think that's going to be super tough for a team that's kind of rebuilding from a bad 3-9 season. The funny thing about this team is, which you didn't mention, Bryan, is their head coach who they fired. is still on staff as their defensive coordinator, Brent Pry,
He is.
which
I
is
think that's
absolutely
awesome.
wild. Oh, I think it's absurd. I can't believe that, honestly. So we'll
I
see how
mean,
that.
imagine I don't know what his family dynamic is like. I think he has kids, but imagine like, your daughter is in high school or something like that, and you get fired from your job, and what are you going to do? Move them down to Troy, Alabama, or no disrespect to Troy, and they did not fire their head coach, but they were playing for the Sun Belt title this past year. Yeah, but then what am I
Yeah,
talking about? But imagine like you're not going to probably want to do like I always think about that, like the family dynamics of these. So I'm glad Brent Price stayed. He wants to be there. He wants to coach.
yeah. You never see that though. Like this might be the first time it's ever happened. To be honest with you, I don't know, going from a head coach back to a defensive coordinator role. Uh, that is what he's known for, defense. So we'll see. I'm just not super high on this team this year. I think Grunkenmeyer's an okay quarterback. I actually prefer Bo Prabula over him. Uh, I just don't know about their weapons and stuff like that. I think they're kind of on the weaker end of what they have around them. So
So I experienced James Franklin for like a very long time with Penn State, and I could very easily see him losing to like Boston College or something. Like he's gonna screw something up at some point. I like Ethan Grunkemeyer a lot. I mean, you remember like back in like December or January, I was hoping that he would have been kept around at Penn State, but he did bring along their tight end from Penn State as well, Luke Reynolds, who was pretty good for them last season, and I think the year before he had played alongside Tyler Warren and was pretty good. Um, yeah, I don't know. They have a couple of freshmen, it seems like, that are in the mix, and I don't really know about a lot of the transfers. I guess their class was like pretty good, but I just didn't pay attention enough to like how good the weapons were that they brought in on the offensive side of the ball. I think just in terms of like looking at it from like the coaching perspective, I love that for James Franklin, like I love that he's able to get VMI Old Dominion and Maryland to start because those are two good games to like get the feel of pretty much the whole team. Like you're starting fresh. Um and playing Maryland, a team that he has faced for over a decade, is like very good. It's a great opponent to go up against. Boston College and Pittsburgh also, like he has played them as well. I think they might have faced Boston College in a bowl game or two in his time. And obviously, like as Brody knows, Pittsburgh and Penn State had played. Um, yeah, it's gonna be concerning once they get into those away games. I don't expect him to win at Cal or at Clemson or at Miami. Like I don't see it happening. I think I would, as a Penn State fan, where like I don't have a lot of bad blood for him now that he's gone. I hope that they go like 7-5 or like I want him to make a bowl game. And I think that it's doable. It's just really going to matter like how much has Ethan Grunkemeyer developed if he is truly their like number one quarterback. And then from there, what does the defense look like? Because as many years as I've like watched him at Penn State, the defense is always something that like they have been very good at. That's like something that has won them games, I thought, at least from like being at games and stuff. So it's gonna rely on basically what does the quarterback look like and what does the defense look like. So if he has enough time from like weeks 1 through 5 or 6 to develop that, then I think that they could win 6 or 7 games.
my thing, Lucas, and you can attest to this better than I can. The thing about James Franklin that I really struggle with is his development of quarterbacks.
Yeah, 100%.
The story coming out of the Steelers, like camp earlier in the season, that they had to completely fix what he learned what Drew Aller had to learn at Penn State because all the mechanics were off,
Yeah.
and that kind of it's kind of like a red flag for me because you've seen it time and time again when he was at Penn State. It seems like every time that they played a team that was just as good as them or better than them, their quarterbacks kind of weren't there. And especially last year with Drew Aller, like there were just many of games where I was just unimpressed with what I saw from him. So yeah, that's my big red flag with James Franklin. Maybe he can turn around in a new school with Drunkenmeyer, but
Yeah, I
that'd be
mean,
the
I don't disagree with that at all because I mean, I was at I go to a handful of Penn State games like during the season, and I remember I was at one of the games, and it wasn't the first game of the year because it was when they were playing someone in the Big Ten, and I remember that like one of the first passing plays, my grandfather and I were talking about how Aller, his footwork specifically, literally
Mhm.
looked identical to his first couple of games. Like it looked like there was absolutely zero development with him at all, just with his like mechanics. Like obviously he's talented and he has like great arm talent and everything, but the mechanics just did not look like it almost looked like he didn't even like get any work with coaches during the offseason. Like that's how from like just watching it in person, that's how it looked. So like my concern with James Franklin going to Virginia Tech is like how much are they actually developing a guy like Grunkmeyer who I mean he played last year after Elar was injured and then like he won them the bowl game, but it's like now you're going into a starting role in the ACC where you're playing teams like Clemson, Miami and SMU on the road. Like I really don't know
Clemson, who you
how.
beat.
Yeah,
Clemson, who you beat, right?
I just don't know. I don't know how it's gonna go at all. I hope that it goes well, but I just don't know how much Grunkemeyer is gonna be able to develop.
Hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting, definitely to watch this team going into the first year of James Franklin because we saw James Franklin have a plethora of success at Penn State, maybe not to the level of Lucas's and the Penn State fan base standards. We know Brad had a couple of things that he had to say about James Franklin's tenure, Brody. But so I'm really excited for this era for Virginia Tech. I think that it's an upgrade, and I think that the offense is going to be a little bit better. Um, but I think the schedule not too bad until you get late in the season. So a lot of wins have to come early if you want to get to bowl eligibility. Last team we'll talk about, a team that didn't struggle defensively and surprised a lot of people last year. They went 9-4, and that's Wake Forest. They really had under Jake Dickert a really cool season. And I'm thinking back to early season when they won that 10-9 game against Kennesaw State, the future Conference USA champions last year. And I didn't know what to think of Wake Forest at the time. And I was like, okay, they're winning games, but there are also games where they're just not scoring at all. But now you bring in Gio Lopez at North Carolina from North Carolina. He showed flashes. He comes down the road. He comes to Wake, and we'll see what he can do there. What's our outlook on this last team in the ACC?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that Kennesaw State game last year because I believe that was a week 0 game or a Thursday game, something like that.
It was a weekday
And
game, like week 1 or week 2, or
I
it
think it
was
was the Thursday.
early.
It was the Thursday because I bet them. I think they were like 13.5 point favorite. It was like my lock of the day. And they came out and played an absolute stinker against at the time, we thought Kennesaw State was going to be one of the worst teams in college football at the time. And I absolutely threw this team to the woodshed. I was like, this team's going to stink. They might not win an ACC game. And to no avail, like you said, that they completely turned it around somehow. Uh, yeah, Dicker might be a good coach. Where was he from originally, Bryan? Because uh, he was very impressive with how this team just continued to get better week in and week out. I don't know what they have around this team. I didn't really look into them because I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year. But I could see him still go like a 4-8, 6-6, trying to sneak into a bowl game type, just because of how well the coach he is.
He was at Washington State, and I
That's
believe he was there when John Mateer was there.
yes, and I think they're pretty decent when he was the coach there. So yeah, with his pedigree and stuff, and seeing how they were last year, I can still see this team win 4 to 6 games.
So I just don't know about Wake Forest much at all. I'm kind of in the same position as Brody because last year you didn't really think much of them and then they went 9-4. So right now I'm in the position where I don't really think much of them because I just don't really know a whole lot about that offense. Like obviously we know about Gio Lopez from when he was at like I think it was at South Alabama and then North Carolina. So now coming into Wake Forest, I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. So I think that they can get the win against Akron, and then it's like I immediately wonder if they're going to win at Purdue. Like I want to give that to them just because I know like Purdue is awful, but at the same time, they could stumble and lose to Purdue. It's gonna be really tough for Wake Forest, I think, because they play Miami, they play at Louisville, they play at NC State, at SMU, at Georgia Tech, and at Cal. That is an insane stretch of road games. Like,
It's tough.
I don't know. That is very tough.
Yeah, you at least open up with Akron and then at
They
Purdue.
play
So yeah,
Merrimack at some point.
yeah, later in
So
the year they play Merrimack. So that's one of those interesting weeks for the ACC. But yeah, you mentioned their tough away games, and they also have to play Miami. That Miami at Louisville double is probably the toughest back-to-back stretch that any ACC team has to face in conference. So that's a really tough one for Wake Forest. Gio
do you
Lopez, he's going to be the difference maker.
do you think that's the toughest draw that any of the ACC teams have of road games?
I think Miami's at home.
Well, yeah, but they go to Louisville, to NC State, to Cal, to SMU, and to Georgia Tech.
Oh, you're talking about just
In
games in
general,
general.
yeah, like that's
Oh,
brutal.
it's pretty brutal. Like in conference games.
Hey,
Yeah,
Virginia Tech has a tough outer like away games too.
yeah.
They play Cal, Clemson, Miami, SMU all on the road. Uh,
Well, what do you
Pitt.
guys think as far
Pitt
as
goes to
win?
Virginia Tech, Miami, Louisville, Cal. Yeah, that's a tough
yeah,
one.
Pitt will be up there.
For Wake Forest, like win total, like where would you both have them at?
I
Seven.
haven't looked at betting. I bet it's like 3.5, 4.5, right around there. If I had to guess.
What I was thinking was around like four and a half.
Yeah, because the schedule's kind of tough. I think they could get to six. I think I'd take them over Georgia Tech. I think I would potentially take them over Duke. So if they get those two, but those are at the end of the year. So we'll see if that team, if Wake has any fight. Like if they're at 4 wins and they have 2 games left, are they going to fight for the bowl game or are they going to kind of sit down? So that's always an interesting spot once you get to that to see the teams that are on the bubble of bowl games, how they play, how they approach it. Jake Dickert's a good coach though, so I imagine that they would approach it pretty good. And
They
it's
could
nice to go
be
to Georgia Tech before Georgia Tech has to play Georgia. But
they could be the 5-7 team that gets in after Notre Dame opts out.
Yeah.
They easily could be. Yeah. This will be a fun season. And they do bring in Sawyer Seidel. He was the running back, almost 1,000-yard rusher at North Dakota last year. Not North Dakota State, but North Dakota was still very good FCS playoff team for the past couple of years as well. So I like the transfers they brought in. Decent backfield. We'll see what they look like under second-year coach Jake Dicker. All right. As we wrap this up, kind of interesting just want to make final predictions. We went long today. This was, I mean, 17 team league. We're gonna go long.
Yeah.
Who's your guy? Who's your guys' conference championship picks?
Mine's, I think we were the same. I think we said Miami and SMU is who I have.
Is it still that they do the two best records? They don't have the divisions anymore, correct?
Yeah, it's two
Yeah,
best
but
records.
some teams are playing 9 conference games this year, and some are only playing 8.
Hmm. I'm gonna say Miami, and they're gonna beat either Louisville or SMU.
I'm gonna say Miami, Louisville. So basically,
Yeah.
Brody and I have different winners of the Louisville SMU game
Yeah,
in week
exactly.
3, deciding. uh,
We'll have to put a friendly wager on that, Brian.
We do. We got to get back to our Brody bets. I still have James Harden doesn't win a ring, but now that he's on the Cavs,
Oh, I know. LeBron might be coming home too.
you might end up winning that bet.
Oh, that'd be electric.
I'd want it. I'd be happy to give that money to you. Any final thoughts on ACC before we wrap up?
No, just the big storylines I think for the ACC outside of like Miami trying to win their first conference championship since 2003 and their first ACC title is probably gonna be like the coaches and stuff with James Franklin coming in. You still have Bill Belichick here. Uh, Norvell's on the hot seat. Dabo's kind of on the hot seat, depending on how they do. I think the coaches are going to be the big storyline this year for the ACC.
I think it's gonna be kind of similar to last season where you have so many like prominent quarterbacks being, you know, the faces of the league right now. between, Darian Mensah, and then you obviously have very talented quarterbacks with Kevin Jennings. Um, his name is slipping my mind again. But
JKS.
yes, yes. So yeah, I think at least that is something that's going to be really good for the ACC. I mean, it almost feels like sometimes it's like a league that's been overlooked, with the likes of the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the SEC. So hopefully they can get possibly a multiple bid league into the playoff like last year.
I think that they have the chance to do it. I think some of those games that we mentioned today on the pod, like Louisville versus Ole Miss early on, Clemson, LSU, those are going to be really big tells on if Miami, Notre Dame, on if this league deserves to have multiple bids. Because last year, I don't think they did. I think they deserve to be a one bid league, and it deserved to be Miami. And going into a year like this, you have the opportunities in the non-conference schedule, as you always do, because there are a lot of ACC, SEC crossovers, rivalries, and then you got some kickoff games going on early in the year. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out for the conference. Hoping they could get to that two-bid status. I think it's always good to have a little bit more parity across the sport. But that's all I got. ACC football wise, I think we're all good. Great long episode covering the 17 team league that is the
What?
Atlantic Coast Conference.
Wait till we see how long the Big Ten one is.
It's going to take 4 hours. Oh, geez. A couple years from now, when all these leagues are 36 teams, it's going to take forever.
We'll just do it
But
live then.
we'll just do a lot. We'll just cover a whole day. Jacob had to hop off early, but for Lucas Miller and Brody Malio, I'm Brian Partika. This is College Football Tradition.